This is where we trained underneath. In some of Bruce's picture collection, you'll see some of us training under here.
Well, you know, okay, well, I came out of a street fighting background. I boxed in the service, but after I got out of the service, I needed to do some makeup credits to get into the university. And that was in 1959, and of course that's where I met Bruce. And Bruce was doing a demonstration, and I wasn't too impressed as far as its practicality for fighting, and I told him so. And so he asked me to punch at him just to, you know, show me what he was trying to show on the stage. And unfortunately for me, when I tried to punch him, I was totally unsuccessful. He was able to trap me and counter me and hit me, and there was nothing I can do. So this was my first introduction to Bruce Lee. This taught me humility, which I had never known before. And from that point on, I began to train with Bruce. And this was in a period which we refer to his fighting period. I look at Bruce from my own standpoint as passing through three basic periods. His original period, which was his fighting period, this was his Bruce Lee days as a punk kid. This is where he really didn't know who Bruce Lee was. He was still searching for his own identity to a great degree. He still had this dream, which was off in the distance, about becoming a great master in martial arts. And he was convinced that the only way that you could become great in the martial arts was, of course, stay in Hong Kong, because all the masters were in Hong Kong and in China. And so by having to leave Hong Kong and go to America, he felt very discouraged that he could never achieve the goal that he was really aiming for. But still, since he was still motivated to become the best, he took what knowledge he had accumulated from Yip Man and began to innovate, began to change, began to add things from his experiences of working out with us. Now, we were all street fighters. Jesse Glover, Ed Hart, Pat Hooks, Leroy Garcia. We all had backgrounds as street fighters, and we were all very physical, very tough. All had reputations for taking care of ourselves. And so Bruce surrounded himself with these type of individuals so that he could try and digest, break down, investigate, really try and determine the strengths and weaknesses of each individual's strengths and you know, his strong points, as far as his boxing skills, karate skills, judo skills, just basic street fighting. And it was from this particular experience that he began to develop his own fighting style. Now, when I say his own fighting style, I don't mean Jun Fan or JKD. Not at all. I mean his own personal private fighting style, which he was not interested in teaching or showing anyone else. He was just developing it for himself. And we never really realized this, because Bruce was very selfish when he taught. By that I mean that he really didn't care about the students. He didn't care whether you got good or not in general and everything. He only wanted you to be able to be good in a certain thing so that he could work against it. The fighting period is where he wanted to just develop himself. He didn't really think in terms of schools at that time. He was really just thinking in terms of Bruce Lee the fighter. Right. He wanted to go back to Hong Kong and beat all of his seniors in Wing Chun. Bruce, when he first went to the United States, really was very successful because of one concept that they have in Wing Chun, which was totally new to the Western fighter, and that's the art of trapping. The Western fighter, whether he's a grappler who rushes in or a boxer who dances about and jabs, all of us, and even a street fighter, his hands are extended. All of us were vulnerable to trapping, which means that if someone attacked the hands, he could tie up our hands and really limit our ability to be aggressive, and yet if he knew how to continue the trap, we were very vulnerable to be attacked and not counter. And that's where Bruce was exceptionally good when we met him. But as we developed our own basic skills, as we began to understand more, it made it more difficult for him. So this forced him to higher levels of skill, because he no longer was able to do so easily with us what he did in the beginning. Because it was so new, so different, it worked. But as soon as we began to understand it, he had to now really start developing more intricate techniques, more overall skill than just rely on his basic trapping. And he was still, prior to thinking of a school, he was still in his own Bruce Lee, I want to be the best fighting period. And this is why the people in the early days are so different than the people in the later days, because once Bruce developed his actual basic fighting concepts, how he used his power, his speed, his techniques for offense, defense, entry techniques, all of these techniques were very special to Bruce. So Bruce's whole idea of fighting was it should be less than 2 seconds, and that you should not be in a position at any time in which you are vulnerable to be attacked, counterattacked. You should have total control once you enter the fighting range in which contact can be made. You should have total control over the opponent's ability to function offensively. And in order to do that, you not only had to have the physical techniques, but you had to have the emotional techniques, as well as the psychological focus. And you don't see that in their later training. For instance, the psychological was the actual ability to really center on everything relative to what is about to take place. The feeling of the individual, the intensity of the individual, the overall physical stature and position of the individual, so that you can really analyze in milliseconds what you needed to do. But not only that, that once Bruce did it, he was like an A-bomb going off. It wasn't just, it was, I mean, it was an explosion of energy. It was totally overwhelming you. You could just feel as if somebody was taking and attacking you with crowbars and bashing your...